You're listening to The Extra Real with Ger Brown
and Colm Ryan for a look at the bigger picture of film.
with films from around the world,
Through the decades,
from movies you know and love.
to movies you need to discover.
This week on the show, we're looking at Bi Gan's 2018 film Long Day's Journey into Night. So, Colm, why did you pick this?
Can I sense like maybe you didn't enjoy it as much as you thought you would? I picked it for the reason that I'd read an article about it that basically it had opened in China on like New Year's Eve or something, and that people were expecting like this gangster flick or something like that, and they got something completely different and were really annoyed. But then I'd also read that there was an hour-long sequence in 3D, that it was one like continuous shot, and that kind of intrigued me just to see it. But yeah, I guess the story is about a man who returns to his hometown of Kylie in search of a mysterious woman. And what I wrote after that was, from there, his memories and dreams collide.
Yeah, I think that's probably the safest bit, because from a narrative point of view, this film goes all over the place. And I mean, that can be a great thing.
Yeah.
And something that I really liked about the film was the whole hometown thing.
Yeah,
That vibe coming through was really, really interesting. Based on the stuff that you heard about it, does it conform to what you were expecting?
In ways, yes and no. It does, like, I did have this idea that it was very dreamlike kind of imagery. And of course,
Yeah.
it's the last hour pretty much takes place in a dream. The character goes into a cinema, he falls asleep, and then suddenly he's in his own dream. And like it's a beautifully shot film. It looks amazing. It had 3 DPs on it apparently.
I'll be honest with you, I'm always kind of touch and go about people who are waxing lyrical about long takes, because once you get past the technical side of it, I'm always trying to think, well, does it marry up with, good entertainment?
Exactly.
And I thought I felt like films like Victoria
Mm-hmm.
was a total gimmick film. I really didn't think it engaged from the point of view of logic or a script, and that was a more straightforward narrative.
Yeah.
I always approach these things with caution.
That's interesting you say that, because Tang Wei, one of the cast, was in Lust Caution.
Is there anything else that stood out for you in this?
Like, it's got this flying sequence like Enter the Void, I guess, which reminded me of that.
Yeah, do you know what? That's something that it kind of did remind me of. Enter the Void. The whole experience of watching this felt like being at a film festival where you're going to see the film that, has been really triumphed, and people have been really sold on it because of maybe a reaction to it at Cannes or something like that. I think it got the Uncertain Regards prize, didn't it, there? So
It did, yeah.
this is a film with pedigree.
And he's a very young director. I think he's 31 now. He directed his first film, Kylie Blues, also set in his hometown. I think he was like 26, 27. That also had a 42-minute long take in it or something. But he's kind of script-wise, like he's kind of more of a poet, I suppose. He said that like he'd seen when he was growing up, all he'd really seen were kind of American-style films with traditional plots, and then I think he'd seen Tarkovsky or something like that.
That's like he went from Titanic to Tarkovsky or something like that.
Yeah. And Tarkovsky can be amazing.
Yeah,
But it can be, his films can be plotting as well, I think.
we're skirting around it a small bit. So far, what I'm feeling is we both felt that this was visually exciting.
Yeah.
And that 59-minute long take is incredible.
It is incredible, yeah.
Especially when they're on the zip wires and everything.
Yeah.
And I get the whole dream logic thing, and I think he, in some ways, that was some way successfully kind of put together. Like, this is a film with ghosts. This is a film with, as you say, it's got the flying scene. It's got great elements.
Brilliant elements. I mean, obviously the story is about a guy going in search of like kind of this mysterious woman and what happened to her, and she meets people who seem to have known her, or and it's throughout the film he's battling with his own memory of things that happened. and that obviously can
Yeah.
go down very interesting routes. I just think it follows that kind of who's that writer? Jose Luis Borges. It kind of follows that kind of idea of like the memories get mixed up with everything. Everything becomes kind of intertextual or something. Like he'll talk to a character and they'll say, like, 'cause there's this green book in it that he has, and he talks to a character and she's like, "Oh, we stole that green book from a house, and it was this happened in that house." And then the green book used to belong to the mysterious woman and all this stuff, and then you don't really find out the origin of it, and it just keeps getting muddled and muddled.
I felt, and I also found it hard to actually engage with the main character. You can have a nasty character, you can have someone who's not particularly likable, but I just found it really hard to engage with this character.
Yeah, me too. I found it kind of cool. Because usually with these types of films, it like the character is like a detective, but he's not a detective. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I kind of like that element because usually it's kind of the typical, hard drinking detective, search of a lost case kind of thing. So I like that element
and it is riffing on that whole noir type stuff,
very much.
Like it's been compared to Wong Kar-wai. Now, how do you think it compares to some of his stuff?
Visually, there's a few things that are there. Like there's things like clocks and stuff like that. That's what I was expecting when I came in, actually, because I'm obviously a huge Wong Kar-wai fan. But Wong Kar-wai's his characters are better. There's a lot
This
more
is it.
characters.
There is more of a connection with his characters than there is with any of the characters in this.
Yeah.
And even though we're looking at like there's stuff where they've got the same actors playing different characters in the second half.
Yeah.
That could easily work, and and arguably it does work from the point of view of the dream side of things.
Yeah.
But I actually couldn't connect with any of them, And there's fine actors in each part. Like it's not about the performances.
No.
But it's really at the heart of it. The issue here is getting the emotional hooks for the audience to connect with those characters.
And there's like that brilliant scene where they, the two characters, younger, get caught by this gangster. And he plays some music, and the gangster guy's doing this really kind of slow dance. And you see the main character's kind of hung up, like, you've seen a lot of gangster films, hung up by his hands. And the gangster goes over and he kisses the woman. And it's kind of like, oh, this is like a cool scene from a gangster film. But that's kind of it, And you hear about this death of his, so the main character, Lu Hongyu, you hear about the death of his friend Wildcat throughout the film. But any scenes involving that character, I think there's just one scene where it shows him being wheeled out in a wheelbarrow kind of thing, like after being shot or something, dead. That's really the only scene that character is in, Other than being played with the 12-year-old character who seems to be a reincarnation in the dream sequence.
And like that whole dream sequence feels like it's like a mirror image to some of the elements of the earlier film, the earlier part of the film.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed that bit, that little chat with the 12-year-old version of Wildcat.
The ping pong table, playing ping
pong.
That was great. That had a lot of life to it, yeah.
And I loved the stuff that, the paddle transforms into something that'll help you fly.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But, and I'd love to have seen more of that. More of that would have been great. More ghosts would have been great. And I was willing to go with it. But I needed more emotional hooks.
Definitely needed more emotional hooks. Definitely needed kind of, the character interactions needs to be a bit, I don't know. They were so brief a lot of the time. You'd have a scene between two characters, and then suddenly it's 20 years later or 20 years back. A character's just sitting down, There's all these little signs of danger as well. Like there's part where he's sitting on the train and he's beside a snake in a cage, and the snake keeps biting at the end of the cage. That's a really cool scene, but... And like the trailer really hooks you in because it's got that great quote in it, which is like, the difference between film and memory is films are always false, but memories are truth and lies, mixed truth and lies. They appear and vanish before our eyes. Like, that's a great quote, but I don't know. Just not the sum of its parts, I guess.
And also I didn't like the way he explicitly talked about dreams and explicitly talked about dreams in movies.
Yeah.
I'd like it a little bit more, find out for yourself, No, maybe that's his shorthand way of going, look, we're going down the dreams route, watch out, and get on board for the ride. Do you know what? It kind of actually reminded me of, like, this is a film that's been described as an art house film. And I always get a bit worried about that because it's insulting to some of the other indie movies and stuff that you see on the circuit.
Sure.
And also, sometimes it can be a case of approach with caution because sometimes it's a very personal approach that may not connect or engage.
Definitely.
And sometimes it can. Like, these films are brilliant. If you can let them wash over you, sometimes that's the experience. And actually, I think sometimes the best place to watch these films is in a cinema and to be totally engaged. So that is one aspect of the viewing experience. That I watched this on YouTube's platform. Missing the cinema experience is something that I think would have helped bring this film up a notch further.
Oh, definitely.
It also, one film that I kept thinking of throughout, even though it's got completely nothing to do with it from a story point of view, was The Assassin by Hu Xiaoshen.
Hao Xiaoshen, yeah, it's actually
Yeah.
interesting you say that because I think Bi Gan said that he's a big fan of Hao Xiaoshen.
Yeah, and I can see it. And actually, The Assassin, I don't know if you saw it.
I didn't see it. I
2015.
wanted to see it. Yeah, I wanted to see it.
It's a beautiful looking film, and it's one of these films where they talked, I think, initially about the film being driven by emotions and a tone, and there are some interesting elements. For me, it didn't really work as a wuxia film,
Yeah.
despite the good elements. I think there are better versions of the same thing. If you're going for action, you're not going to get it. And it's got this bizarre bagpipe piece of music at the end.
Okay,
But getting back to Long Day's Journey into Night, maybe this isn't a film for
me
me.
too.
I think it's successful on the visual front, partially successful on the dream narrative stuff, and a total misfire when it comes to the script. What would you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wouldn't say like if this director had a new film coming out that I would be like, I'm definitely not going to see this. I might actually go see it out of curiosity, just because I think technically there's a lot going on.
I think with the sheer confidence that he displays here, that he could be a very interesting director to watch. It's early days yet, and I think you mentioned earlier on that, the previous film he had a very small crew on it. This film had a crew of like 200.
That's correct.
Maybe things like that are just telling. And if he gets another crack at the whip with a better script, he could make something really, really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. But I think I think it's a kind of Long Day's Journey into Night. Maybe too long. Too long a journey for the both of us, as a viewing experience. But, I mean, maybe I'd get more out of it if I watched it again. I'm not sure.
Thank you very much for listening. You can contact the show by emailing to extrareal@gmail.com. Search for the Extra Real Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can listen to the show on Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere you get your podcast from.